Well, good morning and welcome to Mercury 80. Welcome to Papillon. This morning we have a selection of questions that have been sent in by subscribers, and I'm going to ask who is going to be available and see if they will help us answer them. What I will say is, when you see me doing this, it may show up in 25 minutes of a video, but it takes quite a long time between me getting the answers and understanding them clearly, and I'll cut that bit out, so you may see a cut in between because there's like a long gap, so that's why you only get about 25 minutes. Otherwise it can take me about 2.5 hours, and that would be really boring, just listening to silence and me going, what? So we'll start off with the first question. I'll give you our view for the day, which is going to be chopping and changing as we go through. That's what I'm going to be looking at for now. And the first question is from Louise. And Louise says, "It is interesting that males form unions with females younger than themselves. Is this because of the bearing of children? Right, Daceagaia here. Morning, Daceagaia. Morning, my dear. So the comment is correct. The males have to be at the prime of their fitness in order to source food, in order to protect the females who may already have young around them, as well as carrying young. So they need to be at the prime of their fitness. So the men get to their prime in what we would consider to be 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s. The women are at their most vulnerable when they are carrying or have small little ones around, or that they may have elderly members within their clan, within the group. So they need to be protected. So the males will always be older, bigger, stronger than the females. Right. I hope that answers your question, Louise. Thank you, Daceagaia. My next question is from somebody called Sea Cabbage. Sea Cabbage asks, what's the deal with the military in their positions within the family? We would describe it as being proactively defensive of our family unit. Like a pointman out on the borders, we might consider being at north, east, west and south, but they would be at various points around where they can protect their family. So that's one of the purposes of what they describe as military. Audrey. So here we are, Audrey. Now, as I have said Audrey's name, immediately Daceagaia has said a very gifted lady. He's also just said she has a wonderful path ahead of her. Well, there you are, Audrey. So Audrey asks, are the stones in the starscape laid out for teaching purposes? So Daceagaia is directing this answer at me. Says those stones were laid out for you as a teaching. Took me long enough to work them out. I'm a bit slow on that one, Daceagaia. How long was it since you laid those stones out? 3 to 4 years. Is that before we spoke? Yes. Yeah. That's really interesting. Look how the light changes as the sun comes out. Audrey's next question was also interesting that they talk of spiral energy as I have been teaching in this way. So Daceagaia. Spiral energy is everything. It is all. It is both protective of energy and knowledge. He's saying knowledge, energy and knowledge. Protective and also expansive. This is shown within the shape of the spiral and how knowledge comes around. Just going to have to zoom in on this. Sorry about this, folks. Can't see it now. Saw movement through there. I just can't see it now. Ice Blue. Ice Blue asks, what do the people eat and what are their favourite foods? We like cake. I think you've got a twinkle in your eye there, Daceagaia. We choose an area where we reside very carefully because of the food sources around it. They have to sustain us if we are not travelling. So there are some that are passing through from one area to the other. So would that mean that you would pass through from winter to summer in some places? Mainly in the north. Are you meaning the north of the USA? The north of the hemisphere, the more northerly in the hemisphere, then they would have to have perhaps 2 venues for food. Is that correct? Winter and summer. Water sources that don't freeze. Berry sources. And berry sources are very specific, he's saying, because we get nutrients and things from them that the body needs. So he's directly mentioning now about folic acid, how we would rely on that during pregnancy, and they need certain things when they are carrying children or for ailments. They rely more specifically on nature to provide for their healing. We don't eat a great deal of meat, but if it's available, we will have it. We don't need the same kind of resources or energy that you need. Our body can store energy almost in the same way. It's suggesting to me like a camel stores water. It can store energy for short periods of time, right? I hope that answers your question. Then the next one from Ice Blue says, do the forest or human owner, managers, know about forest beings? So he's saying in yesteryear, times gone by, they were more attuned to their presence. I guess less distractions, correct. But now some who work within the forests do see significant geometry. Some don't ponder long enough to think or to question it. Others do believe there's something that they cannot explain, but may not directly attribute it to us. That's what he's saying, to us. And Dequez, you say perhaps the viewers are tuning in from far away. Maybe since the forest people are of one consciousness, as we as a species are working on becoming, alongside of our resistance too. Could it be that the forest people are everywhere, all of the time? He says, I don't know, but I wonder. So he is now saying, if we as human beings are in our physical, in our body like we are now, I happen to be standing here, then we can't be anywhere else, can't be in two places at one time. However, using a phone, using FaceTime or whatever you call this, Zooming or whatever, you can transmit to somewhere else across the world. He's saying that is also possible. But he says through thought, he said you can connect to one another. And he's specifically saying to me, because I have asked various questions about me travelling to Australia and whether it would be appropriate, whether I would need introductions. And he said they would be there. Not physically travelling, I don't suppose, but they would make the introductions necessary, and they would also be basically shadowing me and what I was doing to make sure that I didn't run into any trouble with Yowies, who might not necessarily find it so interesting. They might find it more of a gross irritation and interruption in their life and well-being. Now, Christy Price, her question is, are the portals destination specific, or does each lead anywhere? So he's really saying that they depending on the purpose set for each portal, their uses can vary. Not everybody can use a particular portal. Some might be specifically for people with permissions to travel. Oh dear, oh dear. Travelling via the orb, he's saying. It's not like travelling in Star Trek, where you're beamed up on a teleporter. How do they know about that? He's saying, I'm explaining it in the relevance to you and your world. Sorry for laughing, but that was funny. Beam me up, Daceagaia. So can they create their own portals for their own areas, or does a portal needs to be pre-purposed and pre-activated? Right, pre-purposed and pre-activated. So somebody else activates it with authority. Right. Right. Okay. So, next, Christy asks, do the people build in every dimension as they do in ours on every planet they visit? So, he's going to address the planet thing first. They travel via the orb, that is in thought, not physically flying out in a space rocket to another planet, with other energies on this planet, off planet. Human beings, an intelligent life form, are probably the few within the universe who do not connect with other planets. It's about evolution. Haven't evolved that far yet, but it will come. We're still evolving as a species. So do the people build in every dimension? Yes, but what we see in our dimension will look substantially different within their dimension, even down to material. It just looks like wood to us. It is wood, it is a tree, but it might have a completely different material in a different dimension. So it might look completely different. So would wood look like metal, or it might just be pure energy, he's saying. Pure energy in some cases. Right? Next part of Christie's question, I think she asked this over several videos. Were humans cut off from the magic of the universe, or were we never a part of it? Are we being brought in? So we've never had the abilities that we see, but in other existences, we might have had in a different existence when we finished with one experience. Life as a human being is one experience. We might carry that knowledge on to another existence. Where we may learn different skills, but those skills may not be appropriate within our dimension, within the beings that we present ourselves as being at that time. Right. So are we being brought in? That was the latter part of your question. The answer is no, but though there are those amongst us who may not be originally, we may have different origins of energy. Instead of being totally human life form, we might have different origins of energy to help smooth the path, to help relearning something we might not have acquired skill properly. Is that correct? So Audrey again, she says, we're talking about rock stacks. She says, I feel like a tiny rock stack is the young ones practicing. but what do they mean? So rock stacks, I think somebody else asked this about rock stacks. Do they serve the same purpose for the Zanu as humans, whereas humans like to pretend that we're clever and build these ridiculously balanced rock stacks, 10 and 12 stones high, and oh, look how wonderful we are, where we would also have them as a memorial perhaps as well. Show you a few images of rock stacks. These were from northern Queensland, where you dare to plant yourself on the beach and build the rock stacks without getting eaten by a croc. You don't want to be too far from your car there. So they're not memorials. They do serve a purpose. They are representational. Some may represent the self. Some may represent the universe, the planet, what is around us, Earth, earthly energies, off-earthly energies. They're representational, but they're not memorials, not in their world. Some may also have been designed to draw our attention, specifically to draw our attention. Is that what Leola did when she was building the rock stacks? She's saying absolutely, but they were also a teaching point for Leola as well. Okay. Lisette, do some of the glyphs charge or direct energy into the Earth's grid or ley lines? Some are extracting, so smaller glyphs may be extracting energy. Larger glyphs, structures he's saying, larger structures may be pointing energy, directing energy into ley lines. Or just paths of energy that we are unaware of, really, through root system, through the ground, through stone. Some stone is fantastic conductors. Would granite be one of them? Yes, yeah. Lots of different stones. Great question. Now Brenda, she's referring to the stick orb, the remote data accumulator, I think it was called. That's how Daceagaia described it to me, what he called it. And she says that stick orb looked to have faint wing-like appearance. So directly, Daceagaia is saying it appears as so, but it's actually vibration caused by vibration within its movement. That's how it moves. They're actually very, very small, and so the movement, how big are they? How big is that? So he's saying about the size of my little finger, because the size of his little finger will be about 4 inches long. Would that be right? He's saying possibly. Okay. Maggie Daw, the next question. I'm beginning to wonder if we, or some of us, were originally from off-planet and volunteered to come here as an experiment. I do believe our previous skills were taken away and blocked, but may be opened or returned by others. Right, that's quite a direct answer. He's saying you cannot always transfer skills from one dimension to another. That is the purpose of having different beings, such as us, elementals. He's mentioning all types of beings here, sylphs, tree spirits as we know. We all have different purposes. If human beings, or if one of us was capable of all of these, there would be no point in another being there. So there you go. Every jigsaw has its place in the puzzle. LLC asks, do the runes match runes from cultures that we know of? So he's saying, like Latin, this is a universal language. It can be read by all beings, all things. Animals can read the energy. I don't think they read per se like we would read and think, oh, that means this letter, that's that. They read the energy. And I think a lot of beings read the energy from it. But it's a universal language. And what we're seeing here is a hybrid. And everybody will be able to take something from it for them. When he's saying everybody, do you mean all beings? All things? All things? All energies? So my last question comes from Deb Ratim. Could it be that we are experiencing mind speak, but we couldn't or we wouldn't be aware? Right. So Daceagaia is saying for many of you that is exactly the case. You already have awakenings. Whether you choose to acknowledge it or to ignore it or to be unaware of it, not everybody has capability of being aware of it. So he's saying you don't try too hard. Do not try too hard. It comes naturally. You pass them off as thoughts. That's fascinating, isn't it? So many of us have the skill and are totally unaware. Although some of you may already have had experience with spirit and recognized or sensed spirit. So I think it just depends on whether we are willing to accept things around us, things that cannot be. If we are living in this compartmentalized world. But I'm going to say thank you to Daceagaia for that. That's fascinating. But I'm also going to ask, have we, over the years, over the centuries, mythologically, there has always been comments, either written or word of mouth stories about folk within folklore, about fae, fairy, fairies, elves, whatever type of elves, all sorts of different energies like that. So is it possible that that because it's always been folklore, we just ignore it and just think it's just fairy tales, but they originate in truth? Absolutely. There you go. There you go. Well, I am going to cut it short here because I am dinner for 1,000 things. So I'm going to love you all and leave you. And take care. I hope you've enjoyed this. And I'd say a very big thank you to Daceagaia. Great insight into things. Lots of love to all of the family. Thank you for helping us. Lots of love to them all. And we'll catch up next week. Bye.